Now, let's move on to part two of actions and inactions that have consequences. Okay. Now, let's move on to India as well, because if you remember, recently I've also mentioned the fact that the Indian government and the Indian media are not giving accurate news about how the Indian Punjab is equally devastated. It's flooded, villages and farmlands are equally submerged, So the Indian media is basically trying to falsify a narrative in which they're pretending as if they've deliberately drowned Pakistan and all. And as you can see the two governments working together once again. Once again, you can see the two governments working together where they're both taking and aiming blames, and Pakistan saying, yeah, India is to blame, and India's like, yeah, well, you know what, I'm sorry. India itself is drowning and Pakistan is also flooding, okay? India had no choice but to open the floodgates because India was drowning. Okay, look at the whole northern India. It's not just Punjab, from Kashmir all the way down to Punjab. Okay, even the Himachal, and I think even Bihar is affected. Okay, look at all those areas in India that are being hugely affected by the floods, and the fact that the Punjab government and the Punjabi locals in India are lamenting on the fact that the federal government, the Indian government, and the other governments of other provinces have done nothing to help Punjab. Remember, I told you in my previous podcast that the people of Punjab were saying on social media that, you know what, we have been a kind of a backbone to India. We've been feeding India. We've been supporting India in many ways. And now it's time that the others should support us when we need help. But where are the others? Nowhere to be seen. So you see, India is no better than Pakistan is what I'm trying to say. But the only way India is better than Pakistan is if the government is not doing anything, at least it's not stopping the others from doing anything. For example, the Indian government, as you know, has basically ruled on basis of hate. It's the same English rule of divide and conquer. So they have been ruling over India on basis of hate, mainly hate against Muslims, right? And the same Muslims that they have been hating against, the same Muslims that they have been torturing, that they have been killing, that they have been trying to, the whole Gujarat genocide that was personally committed by the present Prime Minister of India. He is qualified as a mass murderer, and he takes full credit for the genocide committed in Gujarat, India. Now, look at all of them. Not a single one of them are right now here helping any part of the northern India, basically. Obviously, nobody's there in Kashmir because obviously they are trying to conquer Kashmir. They have been occupying Kashmir, and now they want to them, this flood in a way is an advantage, a benefit, because somehow they can now use this and manipulate this to, dislocate all the people over there, so they can displace the people and then they can start taking over their lands, which is something they've been trying. As you know, genocide in Kashmir has been ongoing, land snatching has been ongoing, home invasions have been ongoing, okay? And Kashmir occupation is one of the reasons why there is a high suicide rate in the Indian Army, by the way, in case you didn't know that. So now we have that going on, and so Kashmir, obviously, they're not going to try to fix Kashmir up. No. This is going to ultimately be to their advantage, to the American advantage, to the Israeli advantage as well, because they are eyeing Kashmir basically so that they can easily reach China, basically. Remember, the only reasons that they have been taking India and Pakistan in their grip, and India is so stupid as well that it doesn't seem to realize that. It thinks that, they're going to have a partnership and at the end Pakistan's going to be taken over and put back into India and this. No, India is a fool, because India is itself going to be trapped into colonization. It already is in a way. So they think that they're having a partnership with the West, but no, they are once again going to be used and abused by the West. But in any case, I've talked about that a million times too. But so here we have it. They're not taking care of Kashmir. They don't give a shit about what's going in Bihar. Remember, Bihar is another occupied state. Yes, Bihar is another state that opted for Pakistan but was forcefully kept and occupied by India. Okay, and then they have Punjab, which has always been fighting for independence. So these are all their troublesome states, you see. So to them, it's like, who cares if they've been flooded? Who cares if they've been drowned, I think they've forgotten that Punjab is, again, one of their main sources of produce, food, agriculture. So But again, India, as I said, has this thing where it says, oh, we're a huge country, so what if Punjab is going through something? We have other provinces or states that we can look at. Not provinces, but states that we can look at. But here you go. Whereas, as you know, in Pakistan, Punjab is the largest producer and exporter of produce as well as raw materials, and it makes up for at least 65, if not more, percent of the GDP, I think. So a point is that in India also nobody is doing anything, but they're not stopping the people. I mean, they're anti-Muslims and everything, but guess what? Unlike our government, they are not going and stopping their enemies from giving aid. So right now the Muslims, as always, as Muslims always are all over the world, the Muslims have been the most active in helping the devastated in India. Right, they're the ones, the madrasas, they're sending trucks and they're sending aid and they're sending supplies and they're sending help and they're sending people, anything that they can do. Right, as I said, as you know, Muslims are known for social welfare all over the world. Even if you hate them, at the end of the day you depend on them whenever you're going through a natural disaster or a crisis, and that's a fact. Now, economic crisis will occur in India because of this flood. So the Indian media, which they refer to as the Godi media, they are the biggest fools if they think that they can hide the truth from the world as to the amount of devastation northern India is facing right now because of the monsoon, because of the floods. And they are the stupidest people on earth if they expect the world to believe that they deliberately let loose water on. No, they were drowning. And again, as I said, upstream, downstream. This is a natural process. The uppermost is Kashmir. Water will come from Kashmir to the rest of India, and then from India to Pakistan, and then from Pakistan to the sea. This is an auto route here. Okay, this is a natural route here. You cannot do anything. As I said, India, in fact, to the contrary to their claims, India tried, as we know, their level best to try to make it impossible for them to release water into Pakistan, which I told you was impossible anyway, because water will ultimately come to Pakistan anyway, either by rainfall or by. So this is God's punishment on a religious spiritual level. God has literally smacked the bejesus out of India, and God is giving the much needed rain to Pakistan, but at the same time he's smacking the bejesus out of Pakistan too for never being ready, and for, again, as I said, for being shameless and for being the way we are. So we are both being punished. Okay, the process, the scientific process, is something else. This is a divine process that we're talking about. Now, in India, with the whole flood situation going on, with the whole help situation going on, they're also, appealing to the government and to their people that, this time we need help. We're always there to support you, especially the Sikh community and the Muslim community. These both communities have been known to do a lot of social welfare, a lot of aid work, a lot of charity work in India. But whenever these two have a problem, we can see that India is just dead silent. Again, it's not surprising. Not surprising. I mean, look at Pakistan, where we have got this government that is literally stopping aid from going to the victims. And not only that, Maryam Nawaz, wherever she's going, pretending to visit flood victims, we don't even know if they're flood victims, because the actual flood victims are just 5 kilometers away, screaming in anger as to how they were not even allowed to go there and how they were manhandled by the police. Again, I would tell them, please, the French beat up the police. The Indonesians beat up the police. What the hell are you people doing here? Now, let's move on to other things that have caused these problems. Let us see the fact that we have a dying economy. I'll call it dying because there are no jobs, so we cannot rejuvenate the economy. There is no cycle, and yet there is a lot of consumption. So that means we're not earning anything, but we are constantly spending, right? And this is not your kind of overconsumption spending that the West seems to be thinking that is their trend over there, and that to them that is a disaster. Although I think even the West needs to recalculate that, because it's not overconsumption, it is the fact that there's inflation both in the West and here. So when there's inflation, it means whatever you are earning is not enough compared to your expenditures, right? So what are our expenditures, and how can you even overconsume when you don't even have the kind of money to spend on your basics? 90% of your money is gone on fuel and bills. What do you have left? So this is another thing that I find that, especially when it comes to social media influencers, either they're always talking about overconsumption, or they're talking about underconsumption, or they're talking about minimalism, or they're talking about, as I said, these are individual characteristics. These cannot be turned into trends. And if anybody is so gullible, then I think that, what, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Okay, if you're so gullible, then you deserve to be fooled into overconsumption or into getting influenced by influencers, because an influencer likes a book, so not everybody has to read that book. Or an influencer has decided to create a spring theme or a Halloween theme and all. Nobody does that. Nobody does that, and yet every single influencer you will see is doing it. And in real life, you're all thinking, oh, are people really doing it? No, nobody's doing it. Nobody is resetting their house and redecorating their house for autumn. Nobody's redecorating for summer. Nobody's redecorating for spring. Our houses are just the way they are throughout the year, okay? We only change stuff in our houses when we need to, or when we actually feel that, okay, yeah, maybe it's time we just reset a few things. And that's it. Tinkering with the house items is something you do when you're in the mood to, okay? But nowadays, with the way depression is setting in, I don't think anybody's in the mood to tinker around even with their furniture or their, decor pieces or whatever it is. Okay, nobody in our right mind is going to do that. And actually, we're not even in our right minds anyway, because, as I said, the economy and let's put it this way, the economic crisis, religious crisis, social crisis, cultural crisis, global crisis, they have all come together to make our minds go into depression, okay, whether it's active or passive, but the depression has already set within our minds. Some people think that, if they go towards overconsumption, or if they go towards, listening, getting influenced by people, then they might have a way to combat. Actually, unconsciously, that is what the mind is doing. But that is also wrong. As I said, this new narrative that we have been building up for the past few decades, that as humans, it is human to err, and so it's okay to give in to your temptations, and it's okay to give in to your desires. And now you're lamenting about overconsumption and about you do realize that this was you literally listening to your desires, succumbing to your desires. I mean, look, that is the thing. You know why Islam is supposed to be like the last religion, as in the completion of all religions, and so the perfect religion, and why you should not do any additions or subtractions from it? It's because it has made such things very clear. One of the first rules of Islam, God has given you the rule, but now it is up to you to follow that rule. If you do not follow that rule, nobody else has the right to make you force you to follow that rule. Okay. Rule number one, right? Another rule number one. These are all rule number ones, by the way. You can't say 1, 2, 3, because these are all like your statutory laws based upon which all the other laws come. You understand? So the other rule number one is the perfection in life is attaining moderation. That means moderation in everything. Right? So that means that even if you want to cover up, if you're over covering up yourself so that you are having only your eyes flashing through, to be honest, this is why a good majority of the Muslims, do not agree with the point of view that Muslim women are supposed to cover their whole faces and leave their eyes only, because it goes against the Islamic concept of moderation. Okay? And also because in the Quran it is mentioned that you should extend your headscarves down to your bosoms. Okay, so and cover your adornments except those which appear normal. What is normal? Your face and your hands and your feet. These are normal. You understand? So basically, what the verse itself is saying is cover your head and wear modest clothes, and your head covering should be something like a shawl or a veil that you can extend all the way to your chest. Okay, got that. But again, you can just do a head covering, and you can wear an overcoat or a cloak on top of your clothes, which is known as the outer garments, which is what people prefer. Actually, that is also something I think I've talked about in one of my podcasts. But the reason why the people in the Middle East decided to just keep their outer garments, the abayas or the cloaks, and wear headscarves is because it makes things easier, because you're allowed to wear whatever you want to, right? And if you're going, for example, to socialize with your friends and your female friends or your family and all, and it's only in public when you're on the way there, for example, and you're in public, you have your outer garment. And then when you go to your destination where your outer garment is not required, you can remove the outer garment. And you can remove the headscarf too, right? So it makes things easier, basically. It's easy to discard your outer garments, is what I'm saying. It's just like how in Europe or in cold countries, you wear your coats, you wear your overcoats, you wear your raincoats, right? When you go to your destination, which is, centrally heated and it's warm and everything, what do? You remove your coat. It's literally as simple as that. Okay, so in Islam, it is the reason why more and more people decided to adopt the abaya, which is basically the overcoat, is because it makes things easier. You can wear whatever it is that you're wearing for your destination. Just throw on an overcoat or an abaya or a cloak, and then when you go there, just remove the cloak and you're sorted. It's as simple as that, seriously. And in Islam, the whole point of modesty is that just wear whatever you want to wear, but cover yourself up properly, and don't wear tight-fitting clothes. So in other words, just dress in loose, comfortable fits, okay? Loose fits, comfortable fits, which, by the way, is definitely more comfortable than wearing skin-tight clothes where you can't even breathe, by the way. So, it's all about moderation is what I'm saying. And this is why, as I said, a good majority of the Muslims have understood that, okay, this Quranic verse is pretty clear when it says that you shouldn't cover your face or your hands and all, because anything that attracts, that makes you stand out, or it makes people more curious, that they will keep on turning and looking at you, that is what you do not want. The whole point of dressing modestly is to make people feel that, first of all, they shouldn't turn again and again to look at you, at whatever it is that you have enhanced. So when you're covering your face and leaving only your eyes, you're basically enhancing your eyes. So you have made your eyes the object of attraction, in other words. And so this is why some people then just cover their whole faces, top to toe. They're like, okay, let's just go. But you see, again, in Islam, basically extremism of any kind is not allowed. So again, based on these rules of Islam is where we tend to interpret however we'll. But again, because of the statutory law in Islam saying that you cannot force people to do what they do not want to do. And that is where then you understand that, okay, it's their choice. If they want, they can do the hijab. If they want, they can do the niqab. If they want, they can completely go, they can cover themselves from head to toe. If they want, they can just leave their faces. If they want, they can half cover their faces. It's up to them, because we have no right to judge them or to say anything to them. They're doing whatever they are doing as per their understanding and their interpretation. And this is how actually and why there is so much tolerance in a Muslim society. The intolerance that you see seeping in has nothing to do with Islam. This is your culture. Your pagan and colonial culture seeps in and creates intolerance. And that is why you've noticed that intolerance is inherent in post-colonial countries. to an extent, but again, because when Islam prevails, it kind of overshadows that. So in many times you will see again tolerance and endurance prevailing. So it's a very odd sort of a melting pot, sort of a mix of religion versus culture, which is again another lamentation that I've made 1,000 times. And why, again, when we say Islam is universal, is for this reason, because Islam is universal. It's regardless of any and all cultures. In fact, it came here to break a lot of your traditions and cultures that were based on superstitions and were based on restrictions. So man-made restrictions, man-made superstitions are haram for that reason in Islam. But again, as I said, Islam does not say that you should endure now a tyrannical rule, Islam doesn't say that you should just go ahead and, allow people to crush you and stamp on your dignity. As I said in my part 1, dignity is not a luxury. No. Whether you're poor or you're rich, as long as you're a human being, as long as you're a living being, you have dignity and nobody has the right to take that away from you. And you must fight against those who try to stamp on your dignity. You must fight against those who try to stamp on others' dignities. You must stop them. You must refrain them. Even if you have to do so by force, by the way. Islam is a very commonsensical religion, a very practical religion. And the more people are beginning to understand it is why more and more people are converting to Islam, because they've realized that, oh my God, this is actually a very simple, a very practical religion, and it's people's cultures that are encroaching upon religion. It's not the other way around, So keeping that in mind, now you would say, okay, so the overseas Pakistan, I'm just talking about how the Muslims are helping everybody, even though, so why is it that the overseas Pakistanis this time have decided to hold back on helping Pakistan? This is actually very valid. I agree with the overseas Pakistanis. Again, you know why? How can they help the people in Pakistan when this very government and this very army, first of all, has been humiliating the Pakistani diaspora? The FIA has been setting up alleged FIA, by the way, because it's not actually the FIA. Again, it's your army intelligence. They've been setting up offices in different countries, and they're trying to pressurize all countries all over the world, wherever Pakistanis are, to allow them to set up their offices, claiming that it is to help with the human rights situation of the Pakistanis abroad, as well as to help curb human trafficking and smuggling. Yeah, right. The only thing that they have been doing wherever they have established their offices, like in Italy and other parts of Europe, is threatening the Pakistani diaspora, saying that if they protest against the government or if they talk against the army, then their family members here in Pakistan will be kidnapped, killed, imprisoned, whatever. And the fact that the European governments are allowing this to happen in their own soil is something I find very concerning. So I'm wondering if the European governments are actually in cahoots with this. So tell me, you are threatening the lives of Pakistanis abroad. And then not only that, before that, you have been cursing them and humiliating them. And then you do not even allow them to vote. You try to stop them from voting in Pakistan, despite the fact that they are dual nationality holders, or many of them are still Pakistani passport holders because they're probably abroad on work visa or student visa or whatever. And you literally have been abusing them. This Khwaja Asif, who is now pretending to be the good guy, he literally abused the Pakistani diaspora abroad. And now they have the shamelessness, the blatant gall to actually complain about how the overseas Pakistanis are not giving them money to help. Seriously? First of all, how are they going to give you money? They're going to send in dollars and pounds into Pakistan. Who's going to take those dollars and pounds? You, the banks. You're going to manipulate the rates. You're going to do anything and everything you can. You're going to take up all those dollars and they're going to go into your pockets. At the end of the day, Pakistan's getting nothing anyway. Second, if they try to send aid to their people here directly, how can they? Because again, the government on the ground is interfering. The government didn't send rescue missions As I said, remember, what little rescue did happen was probably because they knew that BBC was following them in Chinyot, or in Narwal, or the fact that you had ED. Now ED is the one, and ED is a private NGO. I mean, ED is world famous. They are a private NGO, and they're the ones who have the largest ambulance network. And they also are the ones who provide aid and rescue every single time it's needed. The government is never there. The government has decided to use Rescue 1122. Okay, Rescue 1122 is made by the previous Punjab government, not these idiots, to have some sort of a proper EMS in Punjab. Okay, but again, you have your provincial disaster management authority. Why are you, the provincial disaster management authority, using Rescue 1122 for a flood situation? Rescue 1122 can only do so much, okay? Because as I said, they're EMS, they're emergency services. You are supposed to be the ones who are trained to help with the flood crisis. And you're nowhere to be found. You're actually nowhere to be found. And yet, in certain particular places, you have a few men on ground. And while the rest of your men are constantly, even those little few who are working, what is going on? Every now and then, a politician or a district commissioner comes in, and then they interfere and interrupt their work and say, oh, stand there for 5-6 hours because we want to do photo shoots. And it all started once again with your famous TikToker, Mariam Nawaz, who is the alleged Chief Minister of Punjab. Yeah. Like, what is going on here? And you want that the Pakistani diaspora, who you've been threatening and whose families here you've been torturing and kidnapping and imprisoning illegally, like you want them to now send you money in the form of aid. You actually have the gall to say that it's your right. It's not your right. And they're not obliged. Because you said it yourselves, they're not Pakistanis. They have no rights in Pakistan. So you have no right to ask them for anything. And in fact, they shouldn't give you a dime again. It's time that the Pakistanis in Pakistan suffer. Okay, so here's another thing that I'm trying to say. Actions and inactions have consequences. The inaction of the people of Pakistan through these decades is something that now they need to face. The consequences need to be faced. We need to go through this crisis on our own to understand the importance of our inaction. The fact that there's always somebody coming to rescue us whenever we need it is the reason why we have never done anything for ourselves. When we'll be alone, when there'll be no help, when we'll be on our own, that is when we will learn about our dignity. And that is when we will learn the importance of never being silent when people commit atrocious acts. I mean, look at the suicide bombing in Balochistan. What the hell is that? You actually want us to believe that a group of people who have nothing to do whatsoever with Balochistan are going... Come on. Every terrorist incident in America and in Europe and in Pakistan and in India have been orchestrated by the governments themselves. The governments, the establishments, the army, it's always... In America, it's the CIA and the government. In Europe, it is the government and again the CIA. By the way, yes, the CIA has a lot to do with the terrorism incidents in Europe. Okay, in Africa, it's been France and the CIA. In case you didn't know that, the whole world does, except you white people. And then move on to the Middle East. Again, any and all terrorist incidents in the Middle East have been orchestrated by the CIA, the MI5, and Israel. Their joint group called ISIS, by the way. This is on the record. Their joint task force is called ISIS. Okay? And then you move on to Pakistan. Again, any and every terrorist incident here has been orchestrated by your own government and your own army throughout, either in collaboration with the CIA or without collaboration with the CIA. And remember what I said when this government came. Remember, I kept on and on reiterating the fact that expect crimes, expect disasters, expect crisis, expect chaos, and expect terrorism. Because that is the only way that they think that they can control and help, take over the whole country, okay? And help maintain their control over the country. As I've said it before, Balochis are nationalists. To call them anti-Pakistani is wrong. They never were anti-Pakistani, okay? If they were, you would have known. The fact that they have been manipulating Balochistan is also a question we have all raised, or a few of us have raised, time and again. Imagine something belongs to you. It's coming from your land. It's coming from your house. And then suddenly a group of people from another area will come and say, oh, give it to us at gunpoint. Oh, it belongs to us. Why? Again, it goes against Islam even. In Islam, something that is on your land belongs to you. Even the state has no right to come and take it from you unless you wish to sell it. Now, gas is produced from Balochistan, right? Why is it that the Balochis don't have access to gas? Why? Why don't the Balochis have access to gas? It's produced there. They should be the first and foremost to get access, and then the rest of the country should get access. We have 200 years worth of gas. What the fuck are you people doing? What are you fighting over? We have petroleum, which this present government and army have been giving the rights to exploit petroleum to American companies. And so when during Imran Khan's tenure, when they actually dug up and struck oil, the American government immediately ordered the American company to shut it back. Remember? So that shows that the American private companies are not private actually, but they belong to the government, and that the American government can dictate. So, I mean, how are you free in America too? Tell me, whoa, how are you leaders of the free world when your own companies are not free? I mean, look at YouTube and look at Metaverse. They have been kowtowing to their government, encroaching on your privacy, and then they decided to kowtow to our government. The fact that a social media platform is literally becoming part of politics in the sense that it is kowtowing to any government that approaches it, and it is ready to censor and sell out the information of its consumers or users, and the fact that they are helping your government censor your vlogs or your posts, and the fact that they are deleting your posts and giving you strikes on Metaverse because you have spoken against Israel or because you have spoken against your own government or army, that should tell you where these platforms stand and who actually is behind. Again, it's the American establishment. The American establishment, in a way, it means has a stake in any of the in all of these social media platforms, or there is some unwritten or unsaid law in the American Constitution that says that the businesses have to be controlled by the American establishment. And all decisions, for example, Google. Remember how Google was ordered by the American establishment or the American government not to work with China, with Huawei. Why? Because Huawei was a huge competitor. So look at these things and tell me that you don't know what's going on. Again, it's the inaction of the public of the Western world as well that has led us to this point where there's genocide being committed in Gaza and nobody's doing anything. You're just sitting by the fence and yapping, oh don't, as if that's ever going to stop anybody. You need to shoot them. If somebody trespasses into your land, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to scream on the other side of the fence and say, oh don't, or are you supposed to shoot them? This is, by the way, another law that America has taken from Islam, because in Islam, it is the law that if somebody trespasses, you can attack them. And here we are, the whole world sitting and yapping, oh don't, instead of collectively sending our armies there to Palestine and stopping Israel. But everybody has a stake, especially in the Western world. All your governments have a stake. And you, the public, your deliberate inaction, your turning of the blind eye, that is what makes you aiders and abettors of this crime. You found this new gimmick where you think you can always just come up after years after the fact and say, "Oh, we're so sorry, we didn't know what was going. We're so yeah, no." Like how you wanted the whole Muslim world to pay for the 9/11 charade, which your own government orchestrated. Yeah, you now, all of you have to collectively pay for the genocide committed in Palestine, for the genocide committed in occupied Kashmir in India, and for whatever is going on in Pakistan, committed by minions hired by your government. So actions have consequences, my friend. And inactions have consequences too. We cannot just sit and pretend not to know what's going on. It's true that not all of us have the power. We are helpless, yes. But you know what? We at least owe it to speak up, to share what others are saying about it, and speak up with them, or to let them be heard if you can't talk, you know. We are not here to please each other. We are here to pass this test, because every single thing, yes, this is all part of the test. Every single thing that we're going through is a test by God. And we have to go back and be answerable to Him. And this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.